Alright, so let's rewind a couple months to the end of the summer 2019 anime season. As I was preparing myself to bid farewell to such greats as the good-natured dumpster fire and the hardest working demon around, I do what one is apt to do around this time and look to the future. Of course, I had my season 2s and manga adaptations to look forward to, but I hadn't filled my sports kick in a bit because Try Nice definitely wasn't for me. And you know I'm always on the lookout for sports shows. I mean, I have a whole video dissecting the common tropes. Anyway, there were two shows that caught my eye. Aihiro no Sora and Hoshiai no Sora. The Aihiro no Sora seemed pretty interesting, a midget trying to take a ragtag group of delinquents to dominate the basketball world, but unfortunately I didn't have it in me to keep up with it for all of its whopping 50 episodes. So while I might check it out later, I need something right now, and that's where Hoshiai no Sora comes in. And I mean, with the trailer it had, you just knew this was going to be primarily a character drama parading around soft tennis in the background, or maybe even using it as a driving force, I don't know. Especially since this was actually going to be an anime original, which I kind of have a soft spot for. And couple that with the fact that I've already seen the worst that the sports drama genre had to offer, and you could say that I was almost looking forward to the show. Little did I know I was getting myself into. Spoiler alert for the whole video. From the first episode, I was pleasantly surprised at all the common sports story beats we were getting in this show, about soft boys playing soft tennis, the destitute sports club on the verge of shutting down, the club members that hardly care anymore but are sure to be fired up as the show goes on, and the crazy athletic new student who knows nothing about the sport. At this point, I was expecting it to be similar to All Out, like the later parts of that show, but then the credits stopped and this happened.
Yo, Maki.
And while that certainly was the most shocking event in the show, it wasn't even the worst thing out of the things yet to come, and you know what? I found it pretty intriguing because even though I've seen stuff like this in the past, I feel that it wasn't nearly as edgy as I would expect this kind of subject matter to be. I mean, there are some edgy elements, but I think that this show was portraying the numerous amounts of random family drama and general acts of bullying in a fairly realistic manner, with some exceptions of course. And this will be an interesting show to talk about, but the stars were not aligned for this show. And while in retrospect this is honestly the lesser of two evils, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the dreaded plagiarism controversy. So basically what happened is as simple as not giving credit where credit is due. Ryoma Ibata, who is a pretty great animator in my opinion, basically did most of the work on the ending of the show, and I have to say it's a pretty good ending with some fantastic music to back it up. So what's the issue with the cute little dancing ED? Well, just the teeny tiny fact that Ibata heavily referenced some dancers without crediting them at all. Within the context of the show, this really didn't have any lasting effects other than the credits being changed to include the names of the dancers, but outside of the show, I feel this was the moment that killed the budding excitement of it. Sure, you could still find some meaningful discussions, but there was a lot of shitposting about the plagiarism and how this controversy was going to make it a for sure flop. All in all, this isn't the worst thing that can happen to a show. I mean, as long as the story is completed and told in the way the author envisioned, everything is fine, right? Well, as the show goes on, many different plot threads are open and so many different payoffs are set up, but another thing was happening. I started asking more and more questions about how in the world they were actually going to cap off all these stories, and then the final episode rolled around. And then the final episode ended. In pure disbelief, I just assumed that there were actually 13 episodes and I had just not been paying attention. But while the final episode was airing, the director actually tweeted out about a kinda important piece of information. To summarize this series of messages, Hoshiai no Sora was intended to be a full 2-course, 24 episodes, but in the spring of this year, it was decided that the schedule would be changed and this product of 2 years would have to be condensed into half of its length. So how do you condense a story that heavily to have it make sense in this new format? You don't. He goes on to say that instead of trying to make the story fit into the time frame, he would rather just air the first 12 episodes of a 24 episode show. And while I can respect Akane on wanting to see his vision through to the best of his ability, I absolutely hate this from the perspective of a pure anime watcher. I cannot think of a single other anime that has left me quite as mad or as disappointed as this show. In fact, I can't even think of a single anime off the top of my head that has been in even the same situation as this. Like, you have things like Long Riders or even more recently, Azure Lane, where the production is just screwed and they're forced to release the last episode or so months after anyone cares. But at least in those cases, you know the show's conclusion is actually going to be viewable at some point. The only thing I can think of that even kinda come close to this was the ending to Nanbaka, which actually did go for its full 2-cour run. It ended on a massive cliffhanger with a ton of plot threads left open, not too unlike Hoshiai. Except in Nanbaka's case, there was actually some sort of original material available, so I could pick up where I left off and not be left completely hanging, which Hoshiai doesn't have because if you didn't know, it's an anime original. So this absolutely terrible ending is actually just the ending for our boys. For now at least. You see, another thing Akane mentioned in his tweets is that he wants to continue the story in any format he can, which could mean anything from some kind of manga to something like Half-Life 3. There's even a petition I'll link down in the comments that wants to get a second season of this show made, but all of that is something that isn't guaranteed, and if we're looking at everything we have right now, Hoshiai no Sora is something I would never recommend, and it's a good thing he waited until the show was over to let this information be known because in retrospect, this show is a big old waste of time. In fact, let me just give you a list of the stuff we just have to forget about now. The whole overprotective mom thing, the stepmom not liking the stepson, the birth mother drama, the disappointed father thing, the disappointed mother thing, the Twitter bullying, the trash mother, and of course the source of the big old cliffhanger we're left with. I'm probably even forgetting some things, but just from what I listed, it should be pretty obvious just how big of a letdown this ending is. What's the point of getting attached to the boys if they're just left suffering? Hopefully that'll change sometime in the future. For now, you should just go watch Kazegasi Yokufu Teru if you still want a sports show to watch, or maybe even a new season of Haikyuu, which is what this show was supposed to tide me over for. I'm not really sure why I made this video or if it was even cohesive. Maybe I just wanted to rant about something that left me genuinely confused. And this also begs the question of whether or not I would prefer an ending like this or something like Igao no Daika where everything is solved in a very unsatisfying way. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also, let me know what you guys think about the series as a whole, with or without taking the ending into consideration. And while you're down there, make sure you like and subscribe because it does mean a lot. But before you guys rise up like grasshoppers, have a good day.